Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for one of our die sets. This is die number 1048, the tent pop-up, and you can check out all of our die designs at karenburniston.com. With the 10 dies that come included in the tent, you have everything you need to make a really impressive campsite. You've got a tent, that pop-up fire pit, an extra platform, and the tree stump. But then, of course, there are other dies in the collection that work wonderfully with the tent. So on my Father's Day card today, I'll show you a few of those other dies as well. You will need at least an A2 size card to build your tent. I actually went a little bit bigger on this one. So this is a 9.5 by 6 inch piece of cardstock scored in the middle to create a 4 3/4 by 6 inch card. To the inside of the card, I will add the largest rectangles from the Rectangles Crosshatch die set, cut from a pretty spotted green paper, and I just love the edging to those new shape dies. Okay, the first thing we'll assemble is the tent. I found this great double-sided paper that had a good stripe on the front and a pattern I liked on the inside, so that's a good choice for the tent, is to use double-sided paper. You can use any die cutting machine that can accommodate a wafer-thin die. I'm using my Sizzix Big Shot today. The first thing I like to do after die cutting the tent is just to work all the folds. And it doesn't really much matter which direction you're working them at first, although I tend to just do mountain folds and then reverse the ones for the front flaps, because almost all of the folds in this end up being mountains. There's just a few little valleys like those little front flaps. So the front flaps are probably the first thing that you want to work with before you do any further assembling of the tent. And when you fold those front flaps over, the holes are going to line up, and that's going to give you options for how you will secure them. So you could use brads, you could use eyelets, or you could use twine, like I'll do today. So a little bit of twine down through one set of holes, back up the other one, and then just tie those into a knot or a bow. So I chose some maroon jute twine and tied it into a bow. So you can see how that looks there on the front of the tent. Then I just need to repeat that process for the other flap. Okay, once that's done, then it's time to start gluing the tent together, which is just a tab on the front of the tent and a tab on the back of the tent. So the front one is just that small little triangle-shaped tab. I will use my fine tip bottle. It's filled with Lineco neutral pH adhesive, and we do sell both of those items on our website. Liquid glue is not required. You could definitely use a glue dot or some double-sided tape for this. So just use your favorite strong adhesive. Then on the back of the tent, same thing, there is a tab. It's a little bit longer tab on the back of the tent. So you can just coat that with adhesive, tuck it in, and secure it. When you cut the tent from a striped paper, you get a pretty cool effect on the back of the tent and the front with those stripes coming together. The next die from the set I'll use is the one that cuts 4 little washers or rings or rivets, however you want to think of them. They're the little pieces that just decorate the holes at the top of the tent to give them that reinforced look. If I flatten the tent, it's ready now to install inside the card, and you would just line up the ends of the bottom floor with the fold of the card. Now you have to keep it within the card, so you can see the back of the tent is going to dictate that you have to go pretty far forward, leaving you very little space for your fire pit. So a way to combat that is to let the back of the tent fold inside instead. So it works just the same. You're just going to kick the inside to fold into the tent. And now you've really reduced the footprint of that pop-up, and you can go much further to the back, all the way to the back, in fact. This is completely optional because it's easy to eye where the brads would go, but if you really want to make sure that your brads are lined up perfectly with the holes of the tent, you can use the tent as a template for that. Just put the tent into the card where it's going to eventually go and mark through the holes for the 4 locations that you'll need brads. And then I decided rather than cover the brad prongs on the front and the back of the card, I would just peel up my pattern paper, slide something cushy underneath there to get those holes into the paper. That is something I definitely could have done by not adhering that paper down all the way before I did this. I just didn't think of it. Now I can adhere my tent inside the card, which means just coating one of the bottom flaps with adhesive and then making sure the end of that flap is right in the fold of the card and pressing it down. Then I'll just coat the other side with adhesive, and then just holding it so that it stays right in the fold of the card, I'm just going to close the card against that exposed adhesive and give it a second to set up. And that is all there is to it. So it's just that those little bottom floor pieces of the tent meet in the fold of the card. I'll slide my twine between the prongs of a brad, and then I'll put that brad through the hole on the pattern paper and open up those prongs underneath the pattern paper. So the prongs end up trapped in between the paper and the cardstock, so they will be hidden. Then I repeat that process with another brad and another piece of twine for the other hole on that side of the tent. So I take the end of the twine and I go through the tent to the other side, and then I repeat that process of putting the end of the twine between the prongs of the brad and then putting the brad down through the pattern paper and opening the prongs. Then what's nice about that technique is I can hold the top of a brad and just pull to adjust the tension on my twine. So I can adjust that until I like it with that card fully open and then trim off the excess. And this is just decorative, so it's both optional and you can use any kind of twine that you like. Okay, next up, let's tackle that pop-up fire pit. I'll cut the first 4 pieces at once, which is the base of the fire pit, the logs, the decorative flames. I'll do those out of an orange color. And then there is the pop-up fire itself. That's the one that has the tabs at the bottom, and I'll cut that out of yellow. Now you don't want fold in a fold when you have a card that's meant to open up fully flat. So the base of the fire pit cuts 2 semicircles that will come up next to the fold but not cross it. And a way that you can disguise a dark color in between those semicircles, if you happen to have one, if your card color is dark like mine, is you can put a piece of washi tape in there before you glue the circles in, and that can really help with that covering up a little bit of that dark color. Now, if you have a light colored card and a dark fire pit, you could use a pen to go in and fill in the space between the circles. For the pop-up fire, you'll work the 3 folds, and they're all mountain folds, meaning folding away from yourself. And the little feet at the bottom of the fire are going to meet in the fold of the card. But it's easier to decorate it before you glue it in there. So you'll add the decorative flames if you want to. Of course, this is all optional. And then you also have a piece that will add the log at the bottom of that pop-up fire. So just a little adhesive there. Both of those decorative pieces, both the orange and the brown one that I used, those both have score lines up the middle as well. But as soon as you glue them on, it's going to fold. So it's not really that important that you fold them first. Now these 2 little feet are going to meet in the fold of the card, and that can go anywhere along the fold. You just need to glue them in so they meet right in the fold of the card, just like that. So you glue the fire in where the feet meet at the fold, and then as the card closes, that fire will fold down. Then as it opens, it'll pop up. The die set includes a die that will cut you all 12 rocks that you need to surround that fire pit at one time. So I'll cut that out of a light gray cardstock, and then I'll take advantage of that stencil feature to add some gray in the middle of all the rocks, and then just brush a little black around the edges. So here's how I like to add rocks around the fire pit. I do one half and then the other, and I just surround my fire pit with glue, and I stick a rock on either end so that it comes up to the fold, then 2 basically at the middle, kind of where the fire is, and then that leaves me 2 open spots, and I put a rock in each one of those. So you can do this pretty quickly and get good spacing on those rocks by just doing that method. And I'll do that again for the other side. So I start with the 2 that are up next to the fold, then 2 that are next to the fire, and then fill in the gaps. So that finishes out the pop-up fire pit. Now that is independent of the tent, so you could just make yourself some cute little campfire cards if you wanted to without tents. Now let's assemble the side platform. I'll cut my tree stump and my top at the same time, as well as my extra side platform. And for that, I'm going to use vellum, because that'll just help it be a little bit more transparent in the card so you don't see it as much. And I can cut all 3 of those pieces at one time. Now the little top piece is meant to go on top of the tree stump to give it that cut edge. The side platform has 3 folds, and I accidentally pulled it off camera while I did the folding. But basically the 2 tabs are mountain folds, folding away from yourself. And then the one in between, the little diagonal fold, is a valley. So you're just going to arrange it mountain, valley, mountain. And when you do that, it is ready to go on the left side of the tent. So for that, I'm going to add some adhesive to the bottom tab, and that's going to go on the floor of the card right up next to the tent, just sticking out to the side there. Just find a location that can go anywhere along the tent. Then what I want to do is fold everything down. So I'm collapsing that platform down. Then I can add adhesive to the other tab. And you may feel tempted just to bring that up and glue it on the side of the tent, but it really is better to let the tent pick up the platform. So what I mean by that is close the card against the exposed glue. Then when you open it, the tent will have attached that platform in exactly the right spot so that it will fold flat and it will pop up. Then this little flat area out here, that's where your embellishment can go. So I'll go ahead and use the stump that comes with it. You would not want to go any further than that diagonal fold because you don't want your item to be bunched up in that fold when it flattens down. So right up to the diagonal fold you can put your item. You can obviously go further out from that as well. That side platform also works on the other side of the tent. So in that case, you would die cut it and you would reverse the folds, which means you would do valley, mountain, valley on the folds. So we're just still doing exactly the same thing. It's just basically making it a mirror image of the first one so that it can be glued to the other side of the tent. Once again, you're going to glue down the long tab next to the tent, then collapse down the folds. Then you can add your adhesive to the upper tab and then carefully close the card. You might have to move your twine out of the way to make sure it doesn't get into your adhesive. Then open that up and you've got another pop-up platform on the other side of the tent. I added another tree stump, and then I used the smaller lantern from the Camping Charms set, which is a great add-on if you like the tent. Another thing you can do with your Camping Charms is use them to decorate the little animal die sets. So I used the hat from the Camping Charms and the marshmallow on a stick from the Camping Charms, and then added them to the bear from the winter animals. And then I can just add some adhesive out there to the end of my tree stump to attach the bear. Now there is a height limit to what you can put on that side platform depending on where your tent is located, because you don't want it to stick out of the top of the card when it's closed. But my little bear fits just fine. Okay, to finish out my card's interior, I cut number 1 dad from both black cardstock and a light blue, and then staggered them a little bit and put that on the left side of my card's interior using both the number set and the alphabet set, which coordinate perfectly. Then I used one of the smallest crosshatch rectangles as a place to sign the card on the right. Then for the front of the card, I just combined those rectangles again from the crosshatch rectangles. Another bear wearing the hat from the Camping Charms. Now his marshmallow stick is now a fishing pole with the fish charm from the Camping Charms set. Happy Father's Day done with a label maker. And then just attach that to the front of the card. My finished card measures 4 3/4 by 6 when closed, which means it will fit nicely in an A7 envelope. And here's a fun idea for making a matching envelope. You can take the crosshatch rectangle dies and just brush them with ink and place them on the front of the envelope, and then slide a silicone rubber mat into the envelope and then make an embossing sandwich and run it through your machine. And then it will press that crosshatch rectangles into the envelope as well as transfer the ink on the crosshatch pattern. So that is my finished number 1 Dad Happy Father's Day tent card. And now let me show you a few ideas by our very talented design team. First up, Fran Sabad with a cute card using all of the woodland animals with the tent. The tent also can be styled as a kid's play tent, as I did for this come over playdate invitation. Kelly Booth made this masculine birthday card, and I like how she used rocks to hold down the tent strings, and then she didn't need brads. And then Karen Aiken made this wonderful sweet summer glamping card, so don't think of this tent as only for masculine cards. The tent pop-up will be available in stores and on our website the first week of June 2018. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.